Hello and welcome to The Point. Today we have with us Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who was the chairman of the standing committee which looked into the crucial Lokpal bill. Apart from that post which he holds, he is also a well-known lawyer and also a very articulate spokesman of the ruling Congress party. Welcome to The Point, Mr. Singhvi. You have given your report to the government. The committee has given the report to the parliament, and the government needs to bring it in the coming week in the parliament. Do you think it will be able to get it passed during this session?
First of all, fortunately, that's not my headache. And frankly, no government can also guarantee. That's really the property of Parliament. It's the property of the sense of the House as to which way they vote. But I do not see any reason why, if the entire political class is so exercised and so focused on passing legislation, whatever be the minor tweaking up or down, why it should not pass. I mean, unless a set of parties gets together and says that we propose so many amendments that this cannot be done in the last 2 or 3 days of the session, I see no reason why it should not be passed.
Okay.
And I don't see any party getting up and saying that we are against its passage, we block it.
No, you made a mention just now that the entire political class wants to get this done, but it took a civil society movement to hasten this political class to get get on with the act. It had taken years and years for people. The political class just had not bothered about it, and it was only after this movement that the political class started acting.
I think nobody can do more than have a look at the opening para of my preface, where I have indirectly attributed a great credit to a civil society movement which certainly acted as a catalyst, brought this issue to the fore, and brought it to the fore of our collective consciousness. That's a good thing. But that's not the same thing as saying that having brought an issue up to the surface and acted as catalyst, we should thereafter appropriate every aspect, every comma, full stop, every content, every movement, as if it is not parliamentary sovereignty but somebody else running it. These are two different things,
right,
and they are not at all contradictory.
But the fact was that you, as the standing chairman of the standing committee, and also your committee itself, gave a lot of scope to this to the team Anna. You met them 4 times. You had a whole lot of discussions. Don't you think you overdid it?
No, I think you're factually wrong. We met them only twice. In the first time we met them was before the fast, which was a day after this bill was referred to us. And that meeting was a 2-hour meeting. The second meeting was one set of meeting but spread over 2 days, a 8-hour session. So total time we met them was 10 hours, and that was scheduled for the reason that we have also met well before them. In fact, we met them last. The initial meeting can't really be counted because a lot of issues are not clear. We had met before them NCPR, Aruna Roy, we had met 3 other NGOs.
I know, you have met a lot of people, but
yes.
Total, if my memory serves me right, you had 40 hours of discussions.
Yeah, close to 50, 45
40,
plus,
40 the report says
correct.
About 40 hours.
Yeah.
So anyway, out of the 40 hours, you devoted 10 hours to the team.
Oh yes, yes.
So the committee itself was, you're talking about, people appropriating the moment, appropriating each things like that. You people yourself went out of your way to accommodate them.
There's no question of accommodate. This 10 hours are not appropriated by Team Anna. We had them over for a time. Each member asked questions. There was a lot of interaction. There was a lot of hostile and close questioning. And this is all consensual. I mean, there was no problem. We had everybody else. We had 3-4 hour sessions with many other NGOs. We may have had the longest with them, but we've had very long sessions with other NGOs.
So why did you think it was necessary to have the longest session with them? Because do you think
because they had given a memorandum.
They had all the. I mean, they made more sense than others. Or?
They had given a memorandum which had 40 odd points. That's all, and they wanted to go through each point. Others had not given a memorandum with so many points, and therefore the time was less. We went through almost every point of the memorandum, some 35 odd points, and that took some time. That's about it.
So you're talking of the time was less. In fact, concerns expressed in certain quarters. Is that your committee itself was hastened? You took, you hurried through the whole process because of this huge pressure which was there right on you.
There's no question of pressure. we believed that there was a statement by the political class in the sense of the house, which is all that binds us, which suggested that every effort will be made to bring it in the winter session.
Right.
That's not Team Anna, that's not government, that's not Prime Minister, that's not me, that's not you. That's the sense of the house.
The sense of the
we
house
tried,
was-
therefore, to implement that sense of the house, but we repeatedly, if you will see about 8 statements of mine, in this 2.5-month period, I've been asked to set a deadline and a timeline. And every time on those 8 statements, I made it clear that as chairman of the parliamentary committee, I will not give a deadline, I will not set a timeline. I said it's contrary to parliamentary procedure. We will expect and want to finish it soon, but if things don't work out, we could easily have gone to next session. As it turned out, I think we did a remarkable job because we had 2.5 months, 144 witnesses, 45 hours, and we were able to write it because I personally sat on the weekends and wrote it, and we were able to do it within time. So if we were close to finishing, there's no point delaying it just to make the point that you are not trying to follow Tivanna.
You talk about deadline, you said that I am not going to be, I am not.
Almost 10, 12 times I was asked.
Nobody can put a deadline on me. You said that, it's fine. But the parliament seems to be going according to the deadline of the civil society.
There's no question of parliament. You were not there at the all-party meeting, and I wish you could see and hear the disclosures, the statements, the recorded statements of 90% of the parties there. Every party has made it clear. I'm not saying that it will be brought next week or not, it will be passed next week or not, but I am saying that every party at the all-party meeting, barring maybe a couple of parties, have made it clear that there is no timeline, no deadline to which a government committee, a standing committee, either House of Parliament or the House of Parliament can act.
But
it's on record.
But the problem is that these parties which are supposed to have said all these things in the meeting, they come out and to a different line.
You are right partly, and you have to ask the 2 or 3 stark cases of that.
Yes.
That's not for me to answer. The Congress has never done it. I do know of a couple of parties who spoke something at Jantar Mantar and whose statement in the all-party meeting was correct and rightly diametrically opposite to what they spoke in Jantar Mantar. But that's for them to answer.
So the government is facing this kind of a pressure, a public pressure, and also this kind of contradictory stands of the various political parties inside and outside. So how do you think they should be dealing with it?
I think the stand is very clear. An attempt since the parliamentary committee, contrary to the average time of most parliamentary committees, has decided this complex set of 24 issues in less than 2.5 months. I think all the parties in parliament want to keep up the momentum.
Okay.
But that having said that, it is equally clear that if a set of changes, amendments, lack of consensus, new ideas, implementing the amendments, any of this takes insuperable time, then it would have to go beyond. I don't see any reason to suppose that there is a deadline like that.
Okay. On this point, we'll go into a short break. We'll come back. Please keep watching. Welcome back. We are with Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi. Mr. Singhvi, you have made it more or less clear now that you are not the Parliament is not going to be browbeaten by these deadlines being given outside from outside. Now let us keep that issue aside. We'll come to your own committee and what happened in the committee and what ultimately came out in the report. One of the things which were expressed is that one, you were hurried into doing this because maybe if you had more time, if there was more time for you to go through all these things, then this kind of dissent which has appeared in your report. Imagine 25 members there were 25 members in your committee. 17 members have given dissent on 10 dissent notes by 17 members out of the total 25 members of the committee. Don't you think if you had more time, you would have been able to resolve these problems within the committee at least?
I'm very glad you asked the question because I must dispel complete misconceptions. This is an overwhelmingly consensual report. And let me prove it to you in 2 seconds. There are 30 members of my committee, roughly 14 parties.
Only 25 were there, the 6 are vacant. I noticed that there were 31, 6 posts were vacant, there were only 25 members.
That's incorrect.
It is named in the committee.
That's incorrect.
It is named in the report.
30 are named in the report. 30 are named in the report.
25 are named in the report, there are 6 vacancies.
There is one vacancy, 30 are in the report. Out of the 30, we decided 24 issues. On 24 issues, there are 13 unanimous issues. Unanimous means not one of the 30 dissented. On the balance,
There is 17 issues.
11.
11.
24 issues. We are going by chapters, that's the problem.
Okay.
The last few chapters have 6-7 issues in
Right.
each chapter. So let me repeat, and this is very important because Mr. Kejriwal and others have created a complete misconception about it. This is, I repeat, an overwhelmingly consensual report. There are 30 members, there are 14 odd parties.
But
On
I
11
think
members,
I need to, well, excuse me, I need to, correct this because the report says there are 25 members. I've gone through the names of the 25 members.
no, on the top there is one vacancy at the very
There are
first page.
6 vacancies
You
actually.
see the first page?
No, I've seen that. That's what I was going through. So there are total 31, out of which there are 3 from Lok Sabha vacancies and 3 vacancies from Rajya Sabha.
Let me just explain the facts to you. There are 30 members. Of 30 members, we got together and decided 24 issues. Of the 24 issues, 13 are unanimous. Of the balance 11 issues, on 10 out of the 11, the maximum dissent is 22-4, 8 dissenting. Please get your facts correct. On one issue, there is a 17-13 dissent. That means the maximum dissent on 10 out of 11 issues is 22 for what the report says and 8 dissentients. On one issue, C class, there is still a majority, but the dissent is 17-13, namely 17 for, 13 dissent. Now, I do not see any other way of reading it except overwhelmingly consensual. Number two,
That seems to be your interpretation of it. But obviously, we have seen reports and standing committee reports coming out of Parliament. We have very rarely do we see this kind of so many dissent notes on it.
No, please
But it's
understand.
understandable considering
that's not understandable. Let's be very clear. This is not a report which is a single issue report. It's a 24 issues.
Absolutely.
Therefore, when 6 people dissent on issue 1, the very same 6 people may be agreeing on all the other 23 issues. That's
right.
the whole point.
No.
And secondly, I must remind you, since you're talking about other committees, you've had just 1 week ago the Committee on Finance dealing with 3 bills, 29-1 rejecting 1 bill altogether. And on 2 other bills, overwhelmingly majority rejecting the heart and soul of those 2 bills by saying that the insurance will be less than 49. So given 24 issues here, it's a overwhelmingly consensual report.
Okay. I will concede that point as far as, since you're insisting on that if you had more time, do you think you would have been able to work out a better consensus than what you have finally managed?
That's a hypothetical question because if the report is already, barring one issue, having an 8 dissent maximum, I don't see any way of saying that it's not a overwhelmingly consensual report. And secondly, unlike other reports, this is a report which is a report on each chapter. This is not a report on one subject.
Right.
A Prime Minister inclusion exclusion may have no resonance with those who vote for punishment power. So, they are totally different 17 or 20 issues.
On the question of Prime Minister, in fact, I was going through your report and it is very interesting that you don't mention the names, but you say that how different members, it was not, you mentioned that it is not Lokpal versus Jan Lokpal versus something.
Prime Minister is very interesting.
It was
No,
like,
Prime Minister's issue is very interesting. Let me explain to you. The report explains that, but doesn't give the details because it's the tradition of parliamentary reports not to give names. In the Prime Minister issue, I could have, as chairman, if I was absolutely correct and if I may say strict, given only the majority view, which was very clearly, although by a narrow majority, that the Prime Minister should be included but his entire prosecution should be deferred till after he demits office.
Okay.
On the contrary, in the interests of excessively leaning in favor of fairness and over-inclusion, I added 2 other views which had lesser majorities. But I said all 3 found resonance in the committee. Right. I said all 3 had some merit, and personally and a lot of others felt that even though we were disagreeing with other views, those views had resonance. So I went beyond the normal practice and said all 3 should go as the views of the committee, including 2 dissenting or relatively lesser number views also went through in that. And that is what, if you see my chapter on Prime Minister, it very clearly says so.
Absolutely. Then, it is very interesting what you are saying. You are saying that there was a majority.
Only 3 issues.
No, on the Prime Minister thing, there was a majority opinion, though it was a slim majority, on keeping the Prime Minister.
Absolutely, out. Deferred majority. What I call deferred prosecution.
What you call as deferred prosecution. Yes. But do you expect this to be reflected in the way finally the bill takes shape in terms of how the parties?
See, it's not possible to fetter a government discretion. This is confidential. It's happening. It will happen by next week. But what I'm trying to say is that that is certainly a very strong viewpoint. Incidentally, that's the government viewpoint in the bill. I find no less resonance in the view, and you'll be surprised at this, there was a very strong contrary view which I included in the second view. Prime Minister, absolutely no, over my dead body. Right. And that view, incidentally, was overwhelmingly by a number, a group of people, non-Congress.
Non-Congress, and many of them were small parties also.
So these are after all, a parliamentary committee is not supposed to be parliament. It's supposed to reflect individual views. When I give you an example of a committee of finance 2 weeks ago, 29-1, rejecting the entire bill.
So that means that must have been a very bad bill for all of them to have rejected.
I'm just talking of consensus or lack of it. Lack of it, yes.
Okay, anyway. So, so you're saying that as far as the Prime Minister is concerned, there was a slim majority in the committee. What about inclusion of, what about the CBI issue?
Oh, CBI was one of those 22-8 issues. All the other issues on which there is dissent, there are dissents only on 11 issues. 10 out of those issues, and I'm not counting the Prime Minister's issue as a dissent because I put all the three views. Prime Minister's issue, I'm not counting the dissent at all because I put the slim majority, the middle majority, and the slim minority, all three as views of the committee. But on the
in fact, you played safe there.
Yes, I have in fact leaned in favor of being excessively fair in including what could be characterized as a dissent, but which I felt in fairness required consideration because it was a close kind of a view. Now, in the other issue you are asking about, CBI, first of all, the numbers don't matter because the number was clearly in the majority. Our view in this report is the clear, overwhelming majority, whatever it says here. Now, there is no CBI issue, you must realize. When you say CBI issue is very misleading. The CBI issue has 10 facets and people tend to ignore that. For example, CBI should be not touched in merits of investigation from beginning of investigation till charge sheet, right. 1 point. I'm giving you the issues because they're very complex.
No, we don't have time to go through all the 10 issues, but I'm asking you, the key issue is that the CBI has to be completely independent.
That again is misleading. I must explain to you. CBI has to be completely independent is a generic thing on which we're all agreed. It's like saying we all agree to have a strong Lokpal. What makes a CBI independent? That's the sub-issue on which there's a debate.
Okay.
Now, one part of that was...
Yes, we will continue this discussion. We need to go into a short break now. Please keep watching. We'll be back. Welcome back. We are talking to Mr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi. Mr. Singhvi, you were mentioning about the CBI thing. Now, I want just one clarification. See, going through some of the dissent notes of people like Mr. Ramjit Malani and things like that, the concern there, some of them are expressing is that, or the suggestion which they are giving is that the CBI should not be under the control of the government at all.
That's the only issue on which, in fact, there was a debate and a dissent. Yeah. That's why I'm saying the dissent is only there, and that dissent on that issue is only 8 people. The dissent is that you must change the appointment procedure of the CBI. Right. So, in this report, and let me be very quick, we have for the first time in 60 years post-independence said that on the merits of an investigation, the CBI shall not be answerable either to the ministry or to the Lokpal. That's the first.
Only on the merits of investigation. But the concern expressed is that the government still will have administrative control.
I'm coming to that. That's a different issue. Let me tell you the features of independence. That's the issue. Number one, first time. Number two, investigation and prosecution will be separated so that you will have greater objectivity in both. We've been asking for a director of public prosecution for the last 60 years.
Yes.
First again.
Okay.
Third, the CBI shall only be supervised by the Lokpal under the 8.1 provision and nothing more, nothing less. 4, all sanctions will be abolished. So, sanction is a very important filter, and so on and so forth. I have listed in my preface 8 such features of independence. Now, in addition to this, the 8 dissentient members said that the appointment procedure should go out of what it exists today altogether and be under a new system. The report explains, the 22 majority report, that is not so because A, it is not our job in this report to look into fundamentals like changing the appointment procedure of CVC, changing the appointment procedure of CBI. This is about the Lokpal. But more importantly, it points out that the CBI today is functioning under a Vineet Narayan judgment, under which in turn it is subject to supervisory jurisdiction by the CVC, under which in turn the CVC exercises predominant influence in its selection. It's wrong to suppose that it's a government selected body. Under a new act only 8 years old, 2003 Act, the CVC chairs it, it selects a panel, it is very wide. Now that is not the same thing as saying it's a government stooge. Yes.
So you personally think that the same procedure can continue?
We have said in the report that that is not our remit and it should continue.
Okay.
But there are other features of operational independence.
Right. Now let's come to the another sticky issue, but very shortly. This is about inclusion of Class C and D. I've gone through the report. You have made a very sort of a convincing case about why you should keep the Class C. And interestingly, you say that there will be no Class D at all in
we
the
are now
government.
Treating C as meaning D also.
C as meaning D. D has been included in C. So you have this whole huge 65 lakh, 6.5 million people coming into it and all that. No, but the problem is that the members of your committee also said this, that you changed your stand overnight. One. Second thing is that you were taking guidance from your party and from the ministers of your party.
Well, first of all, how can that be? This is a report of the committee. On this alone, which is the only issue on which there is narrowness of dissent, 17 voted for it. How many Congress members are there on the committee? 11 including me. So if 6 more constitute a majority, can the chairman have the liberty to convey the dissenting views? If I have conveyed all the dissents, where is the question of me changing it? Number one. Number two, let me explain.
My question is that were you influenced by your
There's
party,
no question of influence. Let me explain the
or
facts.
by the government?
How can you be influenced? How can 17 members, including 7 non-Congress members, be influenced by a Congress High Command? That's a question they don't answer. This is a 17-13 dissent with 6 non-Congress members. Are you suggesting the 6 non-Congress members took instructions from the Congress? Number one. Number two, on this issue, there are 3 Congress dissentients. 1 minute, let me complete.
Exactly.
So therefore, where is the first? Your own statement disproves your allegation. If instructions from the Congress were being followed, there would hardly be 6 non-Congress members in the majority and 3 Congress members in the minority. Number two, let me explain. So let's be clear. This was a 2-day meeting on 30th November and 1st of December. On the 30th November, the consensus was developing that C should be included. Barely had I reached home, and in the morning next day, I received calls in the night and letters in the morning saying that we were not aware that C class A had subsumed D and B that it had 65 lakhs including everybody. And most importantly, the misconception, the letters and the telephones to me said, the most importantly the distinction was that people thought talatis and tehsildars will be included under C and therefore we are excluding them, whereas they are under the state.
Right.
So they simply said this. I said, I am not concerned, I am only to record and send on. So since we had already scheduled a meeting for Thursday, which had been cancelled on Wednesday, I simply reinstated it. Now on Thursday, there is a clear majority of 17-13 with 3 Congress out and 10 non-Congress in. Please remember, if you have a 17 majority,
right,
you have to have at least 9 non-Congress.
That is an interesting thing.
Therefore,
what has happened is very interesting.
No, therefore the first point, let's get out of the way. You may not agree with C or D, but to suggest it's a Congress view is ridiculous because you have 9 non-Congress or 10 non-Congress
and 3 Congress members dissenting.
So that's all
okay.
Over.
We'll leave that aside. Now, just before we end this whole discussion on this Lokpal bill, do you personally expect this bill to be passed during this session, or do you think it should be passed?
I expect this bill to be passed. I expect this bill to be the strongest ever model of any form of anti-corruption measure. I cannot tell you whether it will be passed this session or early next month or early next session, but certainly this is to be passed, and as far as I can see, every possible effort is being made to pass it this session.
Okay, that's good. Okay, man, just 2 issues very quickly, we don't have running short of time. One is about the latest burning issue which has stalled the parliament in the last 2 days. You are a lawyer, Mr. Chidambaram was a lawyer, Mr. Chidambaram has got into this conflict of interest situation now. So, how do you view
I have
this
a
whole
person,
thing?
I'm not want to speak like a spokesperson, I want to tell you something.
Yeah.
It's an important question and I wish we had a little bit more time. It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate not because we are tilting at windmills, but because we are trying to paralyze the system into a state of non-governance. Anybody who knows ABC of the system knows that senior counsel have no clients, first of all. This use the word clients is itself wrong. It's completely wrong and it's genuinely wrong. Any top of the top 7, 8, 10 people, senior counsel, I mean, there are all kinds of senior counsel, we know that, but otherwise, we don't actually deal with, do you know, it happens every week that I appear for you, you are a corporate client, let us say, in court 1. On the same day, in court 2, I appear against you. That's the meaning of a senior counsel, because you are engaged by advocates. And only difference is that I can't appear against you in the same case.
So
that's
you're
all.
trying to
That's
what,
point 1.
what
Point
if-
one. Let me
what-
summarize.
okay.
Point 2. Point 2. So don't think that Chidambaram, because he appeared for somebody, has a relationship of a client, etc. Secondly, this is
does it mean that he did not even have any idea that this man
now.
he had appeared
Secondly,
for him at
secondly,
all?
I don't know. This fact you have to ask him. Normally, I can tell you that a few of us would actually have no idea at all that we appeared in a case of Sun Air. But yes, somebody has taken a decision. That decision can be wrong, but to attribute motives that, just imagine so many years later, I mean, as senior counsel, we appear in hundreds of cases. Do you think it's possible that some kind of a favor was being done by Chidambaram on a matter where the notings is of the lower staff?
No, but the fact that the Lieutenant Governor has now withdrawn that decision
think
and
that's why I'm saying
continued the
this
prosecution
decision may
shows
be
that
wrong.
there is certain amount
No,
of
I think that may also be done to make sure that every vestige of doubt is removed. But I don't see any reason to start asking for resignation. That's all I'm on. You know, you must not tilt at windmills. You must, when you have a substantive case of theft or corruption, go for the jugular. But today you are tilting at windmills in every comma, every full stop. Every time you sneeze, there is the demand for resignation. That's what I'm objecting to.
Okay. But it was good talking to you, Mr. Abhishek Singhvi. I wish we had more time. There were so many other issues. But anyway, so we will be back again with another leader, with another interesting personality. Thank you for watching.